Hi everyone and welcome to VBJ Lockdown Lowdown, where today I'm delighted to be joined once again by Alan and Vicky Robinson from Vet Dynamics and Jeff Lermer, who is an accountant with many years experience in the sector. How's it going, guys?
Very good, James. Good to see you.
Good. Hi, James.
Thanks for coming in. This is the third part of a discussion series we've been having just about the climate out there for starting up practices, selling practices. Now, this third part, we wanted to focus on those who are looking to move on their practice, do something slightly different, and what the options are. Now, I've just been working on a story for Vet Times about what Pennard Vets have done down in Kent. That's an employee ownership trust. That's a really interesting model. Now, Jeff, I'm going to bring you in first on that. Why is that such an appealing option?
It's an appealing option because if you're running a veterinary practice, the market today is buzzing that it's a high valuation of the practice, but you may not want to actually sell out to a corporate. You might want to follow your team. You want the team to follow through. But in some respects, you're getting the best of all worlds, because we get a valuation today of the business because it needs to be sold to the employee ownership trust at its market value. So the market value is high today, and there's the tax on a sale to an employee ownership trust, because the government wants to encourage you to do it. There is zero corporation tax. Zero capital gains tax on that disposal. So there's various nice words in English language. Zero tax is probably one of them. I also probably like complementary upgrade, but zero tax is a good one. So selling that. So you're selling that. So you're doing everything, aren't you? You're not losing out. The veterinary owners aren't losing out. They're helping their team going forward, and they're getting a tax advantage. So it's a really good thing to do if that's what your objectives are. Obviously, you'll be paid out, but you'll be paid out over the future profit. So it's not like there's going to be an immediate sort of lump sum payment today, but unless there's money in the bank to pay you out, likely it's going to be paid over a period of time. But getting that over the period of time really allows the business to go forward, allows that sort of legacy, and also just potentially allows further investment into growing the practice, helping that team out. So it really is a sort of a win-win situation with when that matters to you, when actually your team matters you probably more than anything. And I think that's why it's a really good plan.
Yeah, and it was something, speaking to Matt Flann at Pennard Vets, was important to them, which is a 125-year-old practice. They described themselves as caretakers of that practice, which I thought was a really nice line. And they just wanted to protect their culture and look after the team that that have looked after them all these years. So, Alan, from a point of view of the team, what are the benefits in something like an EOT?
There's always been a dream in practice of the question is, they come to us, how do you get my team engaged so they're really in and part of the business? A lot of people just come to work, take the money and go home. What we've got here is a real shift in psychological safety. The key things for an employee in any business is that business can be sold at any time. In the veterinary world, that's highly likely. If you're an independent practice, you could already be in due diligence and not know about it if you're an employee. And boom, there's your business that you invest in another ownership. That might not be good or bad, but it is a disturbing place to be. Second thing, you get no share of the wealth really from a business. You get paid well, you might get a bonus, but you work hard, and what do you get? Your salary. So, and third thing is you don't have any say in the governance of that business. You might get invited to meetings and asked to put your opinion forward, but in reality, you have no governance, no share of the wealth, and no guarantee you won't be sold. Those things are underlying the basic employment model in the Western world, okay? And they're particularly salient in the veterinary world. What an EOT has done, or that system, has removed all three of those barriers. You've actually released the human potential in your team in a massive and exciting way, in that now you have ownership in the EOT, okay? You can get share of that wealth, and Jeff might mention some of the tax advantages to the employees in that. And equally, you now have an access to more than 50% of the shareholding of that business and a say in that. what's not to like is kind of the question that comes out of it. But the other flip side of that, the owners of the business have to have huge trust in their team to make this happen, or even let it happen. So you get this two-way communication, the team stepping up and the ownership stepping across in the trust bridge that is just unheard of in the veterinary profession. I think it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Matt, there's a couple of historical examples, but no one's done it. No one's really had the same journey they've had to it. And you're right, it does require a lot of trust. But just touching on something you said, Alan, to you, Jeff, what are the advantages from a tax point of view to those who are part of one of these trusts?
The advantage, the one advantage is that everybody can be paid £3,600 a year income tax free. So that's actually a nice little bonus that will sort of help people. The second thing is they are potentially a part owner of that business. So without actually them having to spend any money themselves, because it's not coming out of their pocket, it's coming out of it's paid for out the profits of the business, they will participate in the future benefit of that business. So they are part of it, and they will have a representative. The EOT has 3 trustees, one typically from representing the people that sold, one representing the employees, and one independent third party, ideally an expert in that industry. So it's in the veterinary practice. So as a result, it's not controlled by the people that sold. It's actually controlled by a third party and the employees themselves, which is massively powerful. It will really the tax is great insofar as it allows people then, if there is going to be a sale, they're going to financially benefit without them costing them anything. Plus the yearly amounts is really useful. So it really is a great structure as an employee to be part of that company.
And I'm going to throw another acronym at you, Jeff. What's a VIMBO?
Right. What happens is, if you want to sell your business to your team, there's a big concern about, I'm going to sell it to my team, but actually, what happens if they don't pay me? How's it going to work? Or do I really want to pay the tax now if they default on me? So what that is a vendor-initiated management buyout. So the owner of the practice says to the people he wants to sell the practice to, whatever that team is, says, right, you want to buy the practice, and the owner says, well, actually, right, what we're going to do is I'm going to sell it to this company. The company's going to be controlled, and you need to agree at the beginning who those people are and what the percentages are. It's going to be sold to you. It needs to get inland revenue clearance. Well, it would get clearance. The reason it will get clearance is because it's allowing that practice to go forward and carry on in the right hand. So that clearance, it needs to be applied for, but it will come. And the benefit is when they make the sale, they agree a price. Now, part of it might be cash if there's cash within the business, and part of it will be out of future proceeds. But the bit in future proceeds is a loan, and the vendor doesn't pay tax on that loan until he receives the money. So he is completely in control of that transaction. If he's not paid, you can get the shares back. So there is a degree of control on a sale. So he's helping his team get involved in the business, but he's not actually paying tax until it's realized. Now, the tax is going to be the first $1 million at 10%, and after that at 20%, assuming tax rates aren't going to change in the next budget. And if you do the sale now, if legislation changes X number of years later or 6 months later, there's going to be more tax. You're actually freezing in the current tax rates. So you're not paying the tax now, but you're freezing in the current tax rates. So if you want to sell your business and the EOT isn't the right way of doing it, this is another option. And it's another option. The benefit of this option is that you are very clearly defining who's going to own that business. The benefit of the other is there's not that degree of flexibility because it's being sold to these 3 people and they're going to have a third each or whatever it's going to be. That's going to be agreed. The EOT is a little bit more it's more fluid, and that number can change. The benefit for an EOT really is the tax on the sale, that it is capital gains tax free, opposed to this. It's paid at capital gains tax rate, so 10% and 20%. So the tax is a bit different. and you can get probably less people involved in it. So it's really slightly different, but it's if you are a controlling owner and you're concerned about being paid and you want to make sure who the practice is going to, it's something that absolutely should be considered. When you look at put the two next to each other, what typically is, the EOT is better, and it's better from a tax point of view, but from a control point of view, they're not the same, and possibly if you know exactly who you want it to go to, probably the Vinto is a better way of doing it. We love acronyms, don't we? I've just did an email to my team saying never use an acronym. It's like, stop it.
Is it a Vimbo or a Vimto? I'm lost. But I mean that is genuinely fascinating. And I mean, the one thing that strikes me as neither an accountant nor a veterinary business consultant is those options would probably require planning, time. I can't do that if I'm 63 years old. I'm going to leave with probably next to nothing. But these are processes. They're really good options to move your practice on in a different way, and obviously the benefits of that in terms of engagement, retention, recruitment, they are big issues in our profession, and that seems to me that would go quite some way to dealing with some of those. But Vicky, have you seen many people coming to you looking to discuss different ways of moving on, Vicky or Alan, and have some of these come up, and what advice have you given to people who've asked you about these options?
Well, absolutely. I mean, these are kind of relatively new options that Jeff's taught us, but it does solve a problem. Lots of people that come and say, I need to exit, the first thing they worry about is the team, and am I going to let the team down? There's always I've got these younger vets that I hoped could buy in, but now my business is so big, they can't afford to buy in, and I'm going to let them down. So that then solves that problem for them. And there are people that just don't want their business, which they call their baby, and their team are their family. They don't want them to go into corporate ownership. So this then solves, or one of those two options would solve that problem for them. Mm-hmm. So it's a real win-win.
I was just going to say, over this last three podcasts, we've covered a lot of territory. But what people don't realise is there's lots of options available. People seem to be narrowed down into this corporate independent chase, and people that's a bit frightening to have limited opportunities, and then put COVID over the top of that. People are worried about their business, etc. I think what we've shown is that there's opportunities for selling, multiple opportunities, and of course what Vicky does there is not just negotiate a very good price, but negotiates very good conditions of exit for people's flexibility post-sale. So that's one of the flexibilities. Second thing we looked at was the startup options are there. There's certainly barriers, certain hurdles to jump over, but they're not insurmountable. And there's some innovation hybrids coming in there. And I would say that we have access to a lot of those now, because that's our primary purpose. And the third thing is then, if you want to stay in your independent practices, have a legacy, but still get some of the benefits of these higher valuations, it's all coming together quite nicely. And of course, what we're doing at Vet Dynamics is bringing in people like Jeff and other advisors around finance, around property, and all sorts of things that way, that actually makes this next couple of years really quite exciting. So really looking forward to getting involved with many of those things. The other thing I'd say, I wouldn't have had these conversations a year ago, but I've had 3 of those conversations around EOT, Bimbo, how do I stay in, how do I build my business? 3 of those this week alone, and I think it's only Wednesday.
Yeah, your last time I checked, we're but I mean, what about you, Jeff? I mean, would you say you're excited from the numbers perspective for the future of buying, selling, starting up? Is it just a good place to be at the moment in vet business?
I think what the differences I'm seeing in the veterinary practice is people have gone into it typically it's gone in as a profession, and the whole thing has always been about that first. Now, that's not necessarily changed, but people are just running better businesses. They're looking at how they structure their businesses, how they run it, what the organisation is, are they putting enough money away for their pensions, all that sort of thing, and properly providing for themselves, looking at it in a much more sort of holistic whole of life process, which in the past they probably haven't been. You know what, I care about animals, I want to set up a practice and sort of just get on with it, and they've done all right, they've done well. But actually, if you go in it with a let's say dull tax focus, actually it can make a significant difference how you're going to purchase the practice you're operating in, how the ownership's going to be, putting your money away into your pensions, you're not paying too much tax, allowing everything to work, allowing your team to get the right level of expenses, all that sort of thing. So looking at it where the core hasn't changed, but just looking at it in a much more sort of professional way. And that's what we've seen at our practice, where it's sort of just become much more sort of focused on meeting people's objectives from a tax point of view, because it does make a very, very big difference, but without changing the fundamental part of the practice.
Mm-hmm. And Vicky, what excites you about veterinary sector at the moment, business wise?
I think at the moment it's lovely getting all these calls from these young entrepreneurial vets saying, hey, I want to start my own business, what do I do? And to hear, that enthusiasm of, I want to practice good medicine, I want to give great customer service, and I want to be my own boss. So it's just going to be really interesting watching these young people grow their new businesses.
And obviously you guys all helping them do that. I mean, so the message from this one for me is that the conditions are right. It might always be quite daunting to do anything, buy, sell, or set up your own practice, especially as we said before, with the pandemic still lingering in the background. But the conditions are there, the opportunities are there, the people who can help you are there. And I think on that note, we shall call it a day. So I think that's been absolutely fantastic. Alan, Jeff and Vicky, with some absolutely great advice. And thank you ever so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.